Hello, Ken Spriggs here with part 1.5 of my classic Loki 3D print build. After looking at it some more and also some other comments that some people had made, I wasn't real happy with the teeth and how they worked out on this figure. They didn't obviously fully print, and because I painted the facial features and the teeth and everything last of all, I didn't really notice it until I got it all together, and by that time I didn't really want to take it apart and redo the head and everything. So what I decided to do is go ahead and try to reprint the head and possibly cut out part of the teeth and modify them on the figure that I currently have, or even modify them in some other way, and get those to look more correct. Because in the show, Richard Grant has some very nice teeth and they're very pronounced. And when he's doing this and kind of scowling and saying glorious purpose, you can see his teeth really full, and it really adds to the way that character looks. In addition, there's one other thing that I'm doing here, showing how I did the trenching in the arm that one of my subscribers requested in the comments as well. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so I'm reprinting these two heads here and doing some repositioning. So if you see here, his upper teeth are much more pronounced on the actual figure than what printed. And the reason for that is that they hang down obviously from his mouth. So for example, if you look at this one here, and I'm printing two versions because I want to get the upper teeth in a nice position and the lower teeth in a nice position. So if I print it this way, which is similar to what I did, maybe a little more forward, the upper teeth are not going to fully form because they'd have to have supports on them, because the mouth above them that they're coming down from, or printing up from as it were if this is upside down, isn't formed yet. And so the bottom teeth, I believe, are correct on the current figure, but I'm going to go ahead and print some anyway. So in this orientation, it's going to print the teeth better. But the main thing I was looking for is I don't want this helmet here to be marred by supports, because it's a nice, smooth, visible part right on top of them. So when I did this one, obviously I'm supporting the heck out of the helmet, which means that if this were the whole part I was going to use, that helmet would have to do a lot of sanding and puttying, and it would just be a pain. So this orientation with the teeth facing vertically up or down, as it were, hanging down. So all of this part of his face will print first before the teeth do, and therefore they're going to print correctly. And what I like to do oftentimes is turn it upside down, because this is actually how it prints on the print bed. These parts are hanging down from the print bed. So if you turn it upside down, you get kind of an idea of how it's going to work. So just like I was saying, the rest of his head is going to print before, in his upper lip, his upper mouth, before these teeth will print. So there's a solid base for them to print correctly and fully form. Whereas the other way, they would not work. So, all right, let me get and print these out and then see if I can cut that part out and just modify my current one. So I did the two more prints that I just showed, and the teeth still did not come out very well. Now this one, I supported from the top. It was hanging this way. So the teeth should have definitely printed down, but you can see, I mean, something else happened. I don't know what happened here, but all these cracks in it. And this one as well. I don't know what went on. I still had the clear resin in there, but it worked just fine for these. So I don't know what happened. I might have to dump that out or something. Really weird. But this is the other one that I supported from the bottom. So The upper teeth are a little more pronounced, oddly enough, but still kind of broken in the middle, as you can see. So I don't know what the deal is, other than these the teeth are too fragile and they just don't work very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill this, sand this one out like I would do on the figure that I did, and experiment with some different things and just try to repair it with something else, like some styrene strip or something. All right, so I used some epoxy sculpt and I just rolled it out really, really thin. And I fashioned some on his upper teeth and a little bit on his lower teeth. It's pretty rough, but that's my first attempt. And I'm just doing it on this head here. Definitely adds to the facial expression. Obviously, this piece is all chewed up, so it's hard to tell. But I think that would work out well. And then once that hardens, I can just paint it, put it over the existing model. So it'll be a little trickier on the existing one since it's up on its base. I'll just have to work with it in that position, but I think I can manage to play with it and get a little better look when I have his completed teeth. So let me give that a try. All right, there we go. So I gently sculpted in some epoxy sculpt. I laid him back on some foam to support him. Certainly adds a lot more to that expression with his top teeth showing. I play with those a little bit more while it's still wet. But definitely looking a lot better than that big open gap in his teeth that didn't fully form. The bottom ones seem to be like they're just withdrawn into his mouth. So I think I will leave those as they are. And then I can always darken those a little bit. It's nice that it's white, so once it hardens it'll be white. I can just dinge them, make them a little dingier once I'm done once that hardens up. So all right, so I added just a little bit of teeth on the bottom. Tried to sculpt them into that open mouth scowl. That looks pretty good right there. Now, the fact that they're so white, I think that's going to affect it once I dinge them down just a little bit. I think they're going to look more realistic as teeth. Almost looks like a mustache on him right now, but all right, so I'll just let that dry. Just a little bit of making them dingy, and then hopefully that's going to look good. All right, so after the epoxy sculpt set up, I put on some dark wash onto the teeth to kind of dull them down a bit. I also worked on the eyes a little bit more, and they're still kind of drying with some clear. Very tricky to get them just the way I want them to be. I am much happier with those teeth. And you're getting a much greater close-up. They don't look quite as obvious in real life as they do on that image. So, but I think that looks a lot cooler. Let me go ahead and turn on the green magic, and we'll do the final reveal of this again. All right, there we go. So a lot of the light on his face gets shown up in the green glow as well. Those teeth definitely make it look more like he's kind of laughing maniacally as he unleashes his magic. So definitely much happier with those teeth. And again, the green in real life is a much deeper green. It's not that washed out as it is on the camera. So, all right. So I am happy that I went ahead and fixed that up. I think he's looking a whole lot better. Let me go ahead and show you one more one more thing in this video from a request from one of my comments as well. All right, so one of the comments from my last video had wanted to see how I did the trenching on the arms in order to run the wiring through it and then putty it back up again. So I printed another arm, and I had printed it in clear like I did the heads. I just put some primer on it so you could see it, see the detail. So the idea is that I want to take a hole down through the palm, out through the back, and I want to trench up through the smooth part and back through here so I can run the wire out through the back. So let me kind of show you that process. The tools that I'm going to be using are a pin vise. Not quite sure this drill bit size, but it's thick enough for the wire to accommodate through that hole. And it doesn't really matter too much because it's going to be puttied over. And then I'm using a Dremel, and I'm using this cutting wheel in order to do the carving. You definitely want to wear a mask when you're doing this and wear some goggles to protect yourself. And definitely be careful with your fingers where they're at. So, all right, so let me do a little close up, and then I'll go ahead and do the drilling first, and then we'll do the cutting. Okay, so the drilling part's pretty straightforward. You're just going to take this, center it, and then just drill through the palm. And if you don't have a pin vise, I highly recommend one. Very, very helpful. And then get some different drill bits that you can use for it. So you can see I'm already getting the hole going through there, and it's nice and centered. It's a good idea every so often to pull it out and take off the excess resin that's building up in the drill bit. Okay, so there you go. So it went all the way through the hand, nice and centered. All right. All right, so that's where the wire is going to feed down through and come out through the bottom. So now what I want to do, make sure this is in frame, okay, is that I take this marker and I just kind of trace down. Give me a general idea where I'm cutting. Pardon the roughness of this figure. It didn't, for some reason it kind of got some cracks in it when I hardened it. All right, so now this method is going to work here because this arm is smooth. The only part that has any kind of indentation is right here, and this is the lip of the glove. But again, this figure is going to be sitting like this, facing down, the flame coming up. You're not really going to see that. And when I painted the arm, it didn't really matter. All right, so there's the area that I want to trench. So I'm not sure if I can get this on camera very well, but we'll give it a shot. So you want to keep your fingers out of the way, of course. So if this thing skips back, you're not going to cut yourself. Very sharp. So what I tend to do is support it underneath. And you just want to be very gentle with it. All right, so now as you can see, there's a sizable trench. And I'm not trying to perfect it, I'm just trying to show you the technique. So, all right, so I'm sorry, I didn't have that in frame. Let me go ahead and show you again. I cut out most of it. So you want to start with a shallow cut, and then you want to go back in. Okay, and again, keep your fingers away from it. so you're not in danger of it skipping and cutting your fingers and that sort of thing. So, all right. So there is the groove. And you can make it pretty deep because you're going to putty over it anyway, and therefore it's not going to really matter. But you want to be able to have the wires in there good enough. So, all right, let me get an SMD and show you how that's going to work. All right, so here is a green SMD, chip SMD, and it's on some magnet wire, which is stranded together so it's easy to put into the one groove. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take it down through the palm. Make sure that that's in view. Okay. All right. Now, when I put it in, I had it extended up about, let's say, about this far, because when I took it up into the clear magic flames, I have a hole in it, and I wanted it to go up inside of it to about the center, and I want to make sure that it's facing outward to the front so it's getting the brightest glow towards the front. So what I did was I would position it right here, and then underneath I just bent it and taped it in place, and then I taped the arm down onto my workbench, and I just put a little dab of 5-minute epoxy right there on the hand and around that hole, and let it set up in place, and just made sure that it was straight and it was positioned correctly. And once that was set up, then I was free to go ahead, and this was secured so I could then work on putting this in the channel and gluing it down. And I just glued it down with some CA glue, and I used some Instaset accelerant to harden it. So what I did was I take like a toothpick, put a little bit of CA glue. So I'd say maybe I do this part first, put a little bit of the accelerant on it, let it harden, and then once this part was set up, bend it around the elbow, do the same thing over here, put that in there and harden it down. And that way I had a nice solid connection of the wire, and then I could go and putty over this. And I just use some Bondo glazing spot putty. I like using this red putty. It dries in a few hours, and it can be sanded very smooth. It's designed to be used for cars and getting a very smooth finish on a car. So I would be able to just fill that in, sand it down, and then in the end I had a nice smooth finish again, and I had the SMD glued, sticking through the arm, and I could run the wire through the back. So, all right. All right, so the last still that I just showed, that's an image from the Cults 3D website showing a printed version of this figure. So it looks like you could definitely get those teeth to print out. And I really like this file. I like this figure. I think it's well designed. So I don't want my experience to make you think that it's poorly designed or badly done. It's rather tricky, especially when you're dealing with something like the head that's one piece with the two horns that are curved and sticking out, and you have his upper teeth and his lower teeth. You have to play with it and do some supports and get it to be what it's supposed to be. So I highly recommend it. It's a really great file, and I would definitely check that out if you're interested in this subject. So, all right, but I'm glad I was able to modify it and get it to work out, and I'm really happy with it now. So thanks again for watching my updated epilogue here, and I will see you next time, and then we'll see what project we'll be working on and where we'll be going in the next time. Thanks a lot.